Hello, welcome to the Hybrid Ministries Tech Forum. This is episode 10, and if you're playing this back at a later time, welcome. If you're here live on Zoom, you get to participate in the show by submitting your questions in the Discord. We're building an international community now that is now 400 strong and growing, and the community is you, of course, coming from diverse locations, congregation sizes, and faiths. At the level we're working, denomination is nearly transparent, and we are but one in a related set of communities. If you're interested in a similar forum focused on Jewish worship, Leo on our panel here hosts one on Sunday afternoons at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're an educator at any level, a teacher or administrator interested in technology for educators, then you'll want to check out office hours on Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can look for links to these shows and the Discord under related shows. And this is very much an interactive community because it's not just you learning from us, we're all learning from each other. The information you share on the Discord helps others in the community. People are asking questions and getting answers all the time. Half the value of our community is this interactive engagement. The Discord is where you'll find 24/7 discussion channels, questions and answers with each other and with our panelists. You'll find future show agendas and past show recordings and special announcements about events coming up. It is also where we take your questions during the live show, like right now. You can ask questions anytime during the show. Just write it in the channel named Live Questions, which is under a category named Live Show. Speaking of questions, it's time for the question of the day. How confident are you in your ability to talk intelligently with integrators or consultants that you might invite in to help you with your upgrades? Put your answers in the question of the day channel. We'd love to hear from you. Well, now that vaccinations are becoming more widely available, we can actually start planning for when attendees can come back into the sanctuary, which means gearing up for live services and events. So now we're discussing installations, online platforms, production skills, techniques to help you present high-quality, engaging online and in-person experiences. If you have parts of your service or webcast that you're particularly proud of, or that you would like help with to improve, you can post them in a new a new category called the Show and Tell Corner on the Discord. And we can all watch them together or separately and comment and try and help out. Also watch the Discord for announcements about technical trainings. Mark Plukas on our panel here is starting special sessions on audio mixing on Mondays at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. A number of people have requested training on OBS, so we'll work on setting that up. And next week, we're going to have a special guest to talk to us about the differences between some popular hardware and software video switchers. What the differences between them are, whether you would, how you would choose between one or another, and that should be really interesting. Somebody has their microphone open. Thank you very much. All right, so... And if you would like to participate as a panelist on our show, contribute to the discussion, if you can add value or an alternate viewpoint, then all you have to do is get here an hour early on Thursdays, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. We'll let you in between 6 o'clock and 6:40 for preparation and sound check. At 6:40, we close the panel, but we'll let people in early to listen to what's going on. And if you want to get a behind-the-scenes look at or even participate in our planning process, you can join us on Sundays at 4:30 Eastern Time, same place right here. We can get into some fascinating discussions, so come and join us. It's always a lively time because we're loose and it's very informal, and we can bat things around.
We are so fascinating. Marty, I just want to remind people to please put the name of their city next to their names in the boxes so we can see where you're all from.
Yeah, thank you very much. So as attendees, your microphones have been muted throughout the show until the post-show. So after we end the formal show, we stick around and we allow everybody to unmute their microphones. We stop the recording and we can have an open discussion. Remember that we don't use the Zoom's chat feature. If you want your questions read, put it in the Discord under live questions. If you'd like to comment on something you hear today, without asking a question, comments and chats are welcome in the live chat channel, also under live show. We do read it, and we like to reply to them. So, and finally, if you're new to Discord and would like a tutorial about the interface and where things are and how to do things, let us know, and we can schedule a time to go through it with you. So, yeah, next week we're going to have a special guest to talk with us about video switchers. It's our video systems overview part 2. We did part 1 on a show just, what was it, last week, I think, right? Okay, so today, very exciting. Today we are working with our first needs assessment winner. The Lake Chapala UU Fellowship in Jalisco, Mexico. Matt Alsbaugh is the part-time minister and lead tech engineer, and Richard Clark is the chair of the Sunday Service Committee and a lay minister for the congregation. He does he conducts services when Matt is not available. I was just reminded that we're going to put if you're not already signed up on the Discord, we're going to put an invitation to it in the chat, in the Zoom chat channel, so that you can find it, and you can join the Discord from there. And somebody will do that shortly. So we held this contest several weeks ago. We started it, and what we did is the panelists here offered the opportunity to do a needs assessment, a needs analysis, to do a preliminary set of recommendations, proposal, system design for 3 different churches. One church in the under 100 seating capacity of their sanctuary. One church that was had a seating capacity between 100 and 200 people, and the third one for churches that have over 200 people. And we selected one church from each of those categories. I'm trying to get the reflections out of from on my screens out of my glasses. See, and if you angle them just like that, it looks weird back here, but there's no more reflections. So I need to have a pair of glasses that's specially made to angle the lenses so that there's no reflections. So we did that, and we announced our winners. And the first winner is the Lake Chapala UU Fellowship in Jalisco, Mexico. Now they have a really interesting setup here. It's because it's in Mexico. The architecture there is adobe. It's very open. It's beautiful, and we were all fascinated by it. So we're going to go through this. And I got to say that everybody who submitted an application did it phenomenally well. We had questionnaires available where we invited information across a wide spectrum of topics about people, about equipment, about services, about music, about the facilities, and so that we can get a good sense of what we'll be working with and what your needs are and where you want to go, what you want to be able to do at the end of this process. So here we're going to take a look at Lake Chapala's submission. I've put it up on the screen, and we can spotlight that for everybody to see. And so they have about 100 members with seating for 70. Hang on a second. All right. But they're planning to do an expansion, or I don't know. So Matt, are you planning an expansion, or are you planning a new facility?
So we had started to work on a new facility, preparation for that before the pandemic, when we were really overflowing this current space. But that's been on hold. And we're really wondering, I think as a lot of folks are, How many people will actually come and fill the sanctuary when we also have the opportunity for some of those folks to join the services electronically? So we're in a little bit of a wait and see mode on a new building. I will say this is a rental building, and so there is always the possibility that we may be kicked out at some time and have to find some other place. That has happened to us before.
Okay. So you don't know about your permanence in this building. Okay. All right.
We've got a 2-year contract. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Lease.
That's good to know. That's good to know. So according to your description, you have, well, we'll take a look at the room in a moment. You see people in the room, and then you have open wings that that you can seat people on for when the room gets full. Okay. And it's a rented space, and you have some equipment, which we thought was very impressive. You have a budget of between $5,300 and $7,300 for upgrades. Okay, and now here's a one angle from that's from the side of the space. So this is the patio, and this is very intriguing. We love the bar.
Yeah, this was designed as a restaurant. So this is the entrance space and some outdoor seating. And typically people would flow through here to a welcome table, that sort of thing, and then into the sanctuary.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so is this one of the wings where you said you could see people?
Right. Yep. If we overflowed, we could stick people out under those covered areas there.
What are the sight lines like to to where the chancel would be?
They're somewhat inferior. You can see the lectern, the pulpit, but you may not be able to see the musicians and whatnot from those angles. As we go on, you'll see that we're thinking about 2 large screen television monitors in this. Yeah, that's a good view of the pulpit area, the altar area, so that, one on each side of the center part, so that people would have a good sight line to the video screens. Typically, we have a pianist on a digital piano with Ableton backing material. You see on the right side. Piano's just not there right now. We tend to lock up everything because we have had theft issues. And then on the left side is our current location for our audio cabinet. As you'll see, we intend to move that to the back space where we would put a tech desk, or we're really moving to that right now.
All right. Yeah, that was going to be one of our questions. I know that. Well, this is a very pretty space. I think, some of us talked about feeling kind of uncomfortable about doing this remotely. We need to make a site visit.
Come on down.
We expected it.
Just a curiosity, notice that the ceiling is brick. This is a very common
up here. Yeah,
thing.
I didn't notice that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is this a continuous flat ceiling? It's a little hard to tell the perspective.
No, it's kind of a dome, which actually creates some interesting acoustical issues for people sitting right in the middle of the space.
You have it, Joe. J-Lo knew.
Yeah.
Somebody's unmuted.
That was Richard, I think. Fortunately, that space only affects people who are sitting there and talking to each other. It doesn't seem to affect our sound system or their ability to hear performance.
All right. That's interesting. Yeah, dome ceilings are very, very difficult acoustic anomalies, or they create difficult acoustic anomalies because they can act as a parabolic reflector, depending on their particular shape. which makes for some interesting cancellations, like comb filtering when you're anywhere underneath it. And with a hard floor like that creates additional reflections that can go up and around. So, yeah, acoustics is how so the acoustics from the loudspeakers you say is you don't find to be a problem.
It's reasonably good. We did have a sound engineer, a person living locally here, help us with the speakers and some other audio system upgrades back in the day when we were, only meeting live. And she actually cleaned up a lot. We had feedback issues and all that sort of stuff, and she really helped us, EQ things and get it pretty tight for that kind of realm.
Oh, well, that's excellent. That's excellent.
Yeah, I think our problems now are, getting good sound out into the Zoom world.
Do any of our panelists have any questions at this point?
Is it? I do. So one of my questions is the space relatively quiet? Is it free of any internal noise? Like, do you have air conditioning that runs? Not use air conditioning? Is there any proximity to traffic or traffic noise? I'm curious what kind of environment you have in terms of noise intrusion.
Sure. There is no air conditioning, no heating, no HVAC of any kind. Well, except for occasionally in the hot time of the year, we'll use oscillating fans. And we are on a street which sometimes has loud noises, buses going by, trucks using their air brakes. And we just live with it. It's Mexico. Mexico's a noisy place.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, do you rent this space or do you own it?
We rent it. We have a 2-year lease right now. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we will be continuing to ponder building something after this,
Okay.
depending on how crowded we get.
Are you allowed to permanently install things?
Yes, with some restrictions. We have to be a little bit careful about, exactly where we screw stuff into. Yeah, right.
Do you know more specifically what those restrictions are?
Oh, yeah, like in the mortar between the bricks we're permitted to put screws in that material, but not into the bricks themselves.
J-Lo knew where I was going with this because one of the things that we immediately noticed was cabling issues when you go to move everything to a more permanent location, rather than going across the floor and throwing carpets down, something like surface wire mold to act as a conduit to the back. It doesn't
Right.
look like you have too many pathways from one end of the room to the other, unless I'm missing something above that ceiling.
Well, there's nothing above the ceiling, but if you go back to that picture, we might be able to see one interesting aspect. No, the picture of if you see right above the speakers, there's a little, what would you call it, like a cove molding thing? A note, just to the.
Yeah, it looks like there's a gap in it.
Right, and so it would be possible to run from front to back on top of that cove molding. That's probably what
Okay.
we're going to do.
Oh,
And
excellent.
then,
Okay.
yeah, so yeah, try to keep it neat, but it will be surface mounted and visible in places, I think.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you. So this is the front of the room where the chancel is, and then the other side of the room, interestingly enough, has a stage. And this is where you're thinking of setting up your tech tables.
Right, that's exactly right. We used to have a co-renter, which was a reader's theater. That's why you see all of the chairs and music stands and all that sort of stuff. They're gone. That makes this space available to us as a more or less permanent space for our equipment cabinet, tech desk area. We would probably, and we've been experimenting with using our cameras from back here rather than on the middle of the floor.
Mhm.
Still, we want to be able to disassemble that on rare occasion when we may want to use the stage. But the goal would be that this would be sort of the tech work area.
Now, how rigid is that stage when you walk on it when there's a camera tripod on there? Do you see the image jiggle?
Yes.
Yes.
That is a concern. It's something that we've discovered.
Right. Okay. And now so the room is 38 by 22 with about a 9-foot height, except in the center where it arches. Great.
Right.
Okay. Now here's another picture of the front of the room with the cameras set up. And we took a look at these cameras. They're small camcorders. All right.
Mhm.
There's 2 of one model and 1 of another. And they all have HDMI outputs. Is that right?
That's correct.
And are they all 1080?
Yes.
Okay.
Are all of these cameras ones that is all the equipment that we're seeing, the stuff that you own?
Right.
Were the cameras purchased during COVID?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So almost all of this equipment, except for the audio, is acquired since COVID.
All right. And yep, here's a close-up or more of a close picture. And here we can see the wings that are outside.
Mm-hmm.
See the lighting too.
Yes,
yeah,
right.
There's a
we
light
have
stand here with a panel light on it, right?
Is there only one of those?
We have 2 of those.
Okay.
Plus some rather not very helpful overhead floodlight kind of things. I'm not sure if any of the pictures adequate. Actually, the previous camera picture shows those lights. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's one here and there's one on this side. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the permanent lighting is just above the space there. Yeah,
Just track lighting, right? What kind of bulbs are in these?
Those are like PAR bulbs, I think, LEDs.
Like you can adjust them though. Can you aim them?
We can aim them. They're just on and off. We can't control
You can't.
level.
Okay. Fair enough.
So yeah.
So one of the things that might have been helpful, and we didn't think to ask this, are screenshots of images from your cameras,
Ah,
so that we can see what the lighting is like and how the images look. Maybe you can send a couple to us at a later date.
okay. And I'm also, there might be a
Or-
chance that Richard might be able to pull something up from a recording or something.
Yeah, that'd be good.
If he is able to do that, he can let us know later in the show and we can share it.
All right, that'd be great. All right, so we went through this one. Now, so here's your editing, your recording setup. So I found this very impressive. You've got 2 laptops, one for streaming with a secondary monitor with a multi-view, and one that's for video playback for PowerPoint and videos, right?
That's correct. Right.
And you have a Blackmagic switcher, an A10 Mini. It looks like a Mini, not a Pro, right? Is that a Mini or
I
a
think
Pro?
it's
a Pro.
Yeah.
It's a Pro.
If I'm recalling correctly, you had to go up to that level. I don't know if you still do to get the multi-view feature.
You do.
Yeah, we really wanted that.
Now,
We're
are
not
you
using. Go ahead.
Are you streaming out of a ATEM or are you streaming from the laptop?
Streaming from the laptop using Zoom.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. Um, great. And you're setting this up all in the middle of the room pretty much. And so that would make it kind of difficult to welcome people, parishioners in to observe a service.
Exactly. We've been gradually moving the stuff off to the side, out of the way, kind of dealing with cable length issues, HDMI cable length issues and whatnot. So we're not able to, fully realize that idea of putting all of our tech up on the stage, although we're beginning to play with that. When we put the cameras back there, yeah, it gives us the flexibility of moving that further back.
Great. Okay. So now we're
So-
taking a look at an iPad controlling the Behringer audio mixer, which is an XR12, I think it is, right?
That's correct.
And so let's see. So it's a little hard to read some of these. I see.
Yeah, the first three are wireless microphones. The fourth one is labeled piano, but it's really all of the musical sources. Our pianist / music director mixes sound for. Well, typically what we've had is a singer, pianist, and of course he provides backing stems for a lot of his music. So he takes care of all that mix and feeds it to here.
So there's another mixer that's pre-mixing.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And I want to just compliment your music director. Those mixes sound really good on the services that I listened to.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I'll pass that on.
I guess he's using Ableton, which is
He's using Ableton. Yep.
very good. They sound great.
Yeah,
That's
we're delighted to have him.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Getting your music to sound right is a major thing. So compliments. So then I see PowerPoint here for playback.
Right. And I think it's probably stereo set up there. It doesn't need to be, but it was.
All right, can't quite read that one. And then there's two gray
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah, so the PowerPoint output, those two are PowerPoint and video stereo. So took two sliders, and then Zoom to speakers is the Zoom output going to the hall. And let's see, I'm trying to remember the setup here. We have, I think main is going, the main bus is going to the speakers, the sound system, and then bus one is going to Zoom. So on bus one, you definitely want to turn down those that Zoom to speakers completely off, lest you feedback from Zoom to Zoom.
Right, you're doing a mix minus.
A mix minus, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We're gradually learning all the lingo.
That mix minus is the thing that gets a lot of people tripped up. It's like, how do I stop my Zoom audio going back to Zoom and causing echoes and reverberations? Yeah.
So that I
Go
understand,
ahead.
you've connected. So the Zoom coming in, you've taken the speaker out of the laptop, and you're plugging that into the channel into the 7th channel. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then you're taking in as you say, bus one, which will go out to you're going back into the mic input into the there.
Zoom. Yeah.
Okay, I've got a really simple fix for something in a second.
Okay.
I wanted wonder if it's worth it to mention to the novices in the group that this is called a GUI, a graphic user interface, which actually just represents what would typically be on a desk, on a sound desk. Their actual XR is in a rack at the front, but they can take the iPad and actually portably walk around the room and change faders. I just wanted to, in case anybody did not understand that.
Yeah, very, very good thought. This is a digital mixer, and one of the benefits of a digital mixer is that you can actually remotely control it from a computer screen, from a laptop, a desktop, or even your phone. And so this is one of the screens that makes that possible. And we'll see in a later picture where that actual physical mixer is.
And I'll add, because we've done it, multiple people can control this at the same time.
Oh,
You can
that what
even
you want?
control this from a completely different location.
Mhm.
Like, you're in Mexico, but I could control that mixer theoretically from here.
And you probably wanted to do that when you were in our service last week.
All right, let's continue down the road here. Okay, yeah, here's a picture of the actual rack. Let me get this so we can see it all. All right, so starting up at the top here, this looks like a powered mixer. So we see a couple of inputs and a couple of outputs. Typically,
Yeah.
this would have a number of inputs and has a power amplifier that drives the speakers, but you're only using two inputs, left and right. And then
Right,
going
we're
out
only
to-
using this as a power amp, basically.
as a
And
power amp. Yeah.
I'd probably look to replace it. It's a bit noisy. It has some fan noise, and I think it does the job, but
Sometimes we use what we have available, right?
that's exactly right.
Hmm. Down below that, this is the XR12, the audio mixer. Now you see that it has no faders on it whatsoever. In fact, the only volume control that it has on it is a headphone volume control, and that's it. Everything about this mixer is controlled through software. In fact, I'm using it here. My microphone is going into a larger model called an XR18 that I have sitting here, and I have that control panel on my desktop, plus a few other audio things in my chain, but that's what I'm using for an audio interface. Down below that, we see 3 wireless microphone channels, right?
Right. Right. The Shure dual receiver, which we use for most of our mic work, and then an older Pile unit, which takes 2 microphone inputs and sums them into one, which makes it a little bit clunky. And we use that when we need an extra microphone. It's not as good quality as the Shure, but does the job.
All right. Is there anything else in this rack that we don't notice?
There is a little Bluetooth receiver, which your arrow was just over, to the right side of the mixer. That's occasionally used for, audio playback. Less so in our current environment than it used to be used. Playback from somebody's phone or whatnot.
Great. Okay. Yeah, that's a handy thing to have. Let's see. So there's the L4L amplifier, the XR12, the wireless microphones. All right. And you have 2 Control 28 JBL speakers mounted on the walls. We saw that. How do we, so you had some questions in your submission. How do you staff your operation? You have 2 alternating tech teams with various positions, a tech leader who does your audio mix, and 2 offsite persons who help out with the Zoom, doing spotlighting and breakout rooms and such. You have additional volunteers who admit people from the waiting room, monitor the chats. That's good. You have one person that's doing content creation, preparing PowerPoint slides in advance. Somebody cleaning up posts and videos, YouTube videos that you use. All right, great. And of course, you want to be able to do this with as few people as possible. You're going to continue to use Zoom. So what is it about Zoom that works particularly well for you?
We have really appreciated the interactivity that Zoom provides, the possibility of doing breakout rooms, polls, remote, easy, remote participants. We've been very clear that while we do a lot of our production at the fellowship space, at the studio, as we call it, people don't have to come down there. They can do it from home, just like we're doing here. And I am not sure how one would accomplish that with other, a pure YouTube's or Facebook stream or that sort of thing. So I think those are going to be valuable going forward.
All right. And then you also go out to YouTube. Oh, you're open to going out to YouTube and Facebook. All right.
Right. And I guess the other thing that we're wanting to look at is streaming the Zoom channel directly to, for example, YouTube in real time. Streaming live. Yeah, right now we record and somebody goes to the effort of cleaning things up, posting, see if we get any kind of strikes or whatever, dealing with that sort of stuff, rare but occasional, and then providing the link for congregants.
All right. And let's see, continuing on. So you're seeing, we talked about the fact that you're seeing people who have moved away come back to watch services and participate. That's excellent. How many people do you have watching your virtual services now?
Typically in the order of 50 to 60 connections. Well, let me think about that.
At 50 or 60 connections, and then typically about 25 people watch the YouTube.
Great. Okay. Oh, so you are, but you're not going live to YouTube. Is that for playback later?
It's all playback, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you have a choir of about 8 to 12 people with a soloist, keyboardist. All right. So here I had this question here. You have a keyboard with Ableton. They're using Ableton to modify the sounds of the keyboard.
Right, and add backing tracks.
Yeah,
both.
So are there outputs from the keyboard as well as from the Ableton computer?
I believe that Michael takes I think he takes the MIDI output into the Ableton computer, and so everything is generated by Ableton.
Okay, great.
And then I think he has a separate mixer to mix the audio of our singer with that, and they control that.
So I appreciate the fact that your music is being pre-mixed. How well is that working?
The biggest issue we're having is providing them with decent monitoring. As you saw, we had no monitor wedges or any other kind of special monitor channel. And sometimes depending on where we place these people, and of course, we're trying to keep the singer a decent distance from everybody else. She may be in a, not the best spot to hear the piano and herself. So I'd say monitoring is the hardest thing, and that's also controlled not by. Ideally, it would be controlled by our pianist music director, or even by her.
Okay.
But it's not right now.
All right. Let's see now. Oh, wrong one. Okay, so you do have rentals coming in for music performances. That's great. A lot of this we've already gone through.
On behalf of musicians everywhere, we thank you for your concern about monitors.
Yes.
It's a lovely thing to hear that.
All right. Well, hey, that was a really, really well done submission. Lots of information there. Gives us a really good sense of what you have to work with and what we have to work with as well.
I wonder if, as part of the submission, there was that one part left out, which was the floor plan layout. And I wonder if
Yeah, let's take a look
sharing
at that.
that now before. So let me see here. I need to do share screen, click the thing. Okay, so this may be useful. Now this is a little bit up to date, more up to date than what you saw in the submission, but it's what we're playing with now and where we're going. Cameras in the, well, I'll let you ask questions because you have control of the pointer.
Oh, well, let's see. I don't know if you can see my pointer. But I see the chancel area and I see the open walls to either side. And so I expect that you would seat people. If you're seeing people in the wings, they could only be on the back half of the open wall.
Right. Yeah. Something
Right.
like
And out
this.
to the sides.
Right.
And you were talking about the possibility of putting up screens.
Right.
Where would
Yeah,
where do you propose those screens would be?
They would be on the left and right side of the east wall, the wall behind the pulpit. Probably as high and as close to the edge of the wall as they could be and still be seen.
Okay.
So if I can jump in for a second,
Yeah.
what would you like to put on the screens? How would you like to use them?
Well, a large part of it would be the Zoom program, which could be remote speakers at times, but also the Zoom material going out to those people who are participating at home. I think there's a sense of wanting to kind of equalize the experience of everyone as best as possible.
Kind of make the congregation feel like the people that are remote on Zoom are with them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And we do use a fair amount of these slideshows, some recorded material, recorded music videos, UU videos, that sort of stuff would also be presented there as it went out on Zoom. So yeah.
So the one question, or maybe I have more than one question, but my first question would be, so we're looking at the seating area. How far away would the furthest viewer be from the screen? And then the context of this goes to, making sure that you have a screen that is large enough so that you can provide, legible, readable text
Right, right,
to persons that are far away.
right. So the furthest person would be probably about 35 feet or so. If you chop off what was it, 3 feet? I've forgotten exactly how. No, it's got to be more than that. That was, I'm trying to remember the width of the stage area, and I know we put it in here. I have a feeling that it's something like 6 or 8 feet. So call it 30
I
feet.
think it's 6
32.
feet, not 8 feet.
Yeah. So 30, 32 feet. And what we've done is taped up large pieces of paper that represent some different screen size and written on those to get an idea of what's readable.
Excellent. And what did you find? What size screen do you?
We actually have a person who is, in addition to getting their vaccination, is sourcing 75-inch screens in Texas. They're not available in Mexico easily.
Well, that's a nice size.
Big.
I
I
was
think that's
wondering
kind of
about
big.
putting screens on rolling stands and being able to put them outside.
Mm.
Yeah.
Weather permitting.
Weather permitting. Well, people would be sitting outside, weather permitting, and there's coverings.
Right.
Yeah.
So you get the screen closer to the people. The screen can be smaller
Yep.
Right.
and be easier to see. And that means you can seat people closer to the chancel because they'll have a screen there in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious how they're going to secure them, because they did mention theft as an issue since there's no doors on this thing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's true.
We are looking at screen mounting hardware that is lockable. I don't know how really secure that sort of stuff is, but
Right.
I would guess that if somebody shows up with a crowbar, well, they're probably going to end up just damaging our screen.
So there's
Okay.
no way. So obviously the building itself is open, but around the perimeter, there's no outside wall or fencing or anything.
Oh yeah, let me be clear. There is an outside wall and a locking door. The problem we've had in the past was an inside job, a maid that allowed somebody to come in and walk off with stuff. We are also doing some security stuff, a keypad door lock thing and stuff like that and we're trying to get that stuff done before we put in any obviously interesting stuff.
But people can come right over the wall.
That is possible. Yeah, it's happened in other places.
Have you
we just
considered
need
an
a ladder.
electric cattle fence?
They use those around here. They do.
bet.
And
I can see somebody lifting a 70-inch TV over a wall. I don't know. They'd have to get it off the cart first.
How high a wall is it?
what do you think, Richard? 12 feet?
Once they're in, they can open the doors and roll it out.
That's true. You think like a thief,
Okay.
Mark.
Yeah, well, the thought that came to my mind is you can get electronic locks, keypad locks that actually keep a log of
Right.
all of the codes that come and go and the times. It's something.
Yeah, we are putting something like that in, and that's a very, very good point.
Yeah.
And also some cameras. We're thinking about getting some security cameras. Those are, just consumer grade stuff.
Great. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to ask if there are any final questions, either from Matt and Richard or from any of the panelists.
Is the raised stage a permanent fixture?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question about the projector. You said there's a projector. Where does it live typically? And is the screen behind the pulpit? Did I see that
Right.
up there?
Yes, that's correct. There's a motorized screen behind the pulpit, and the projector hangs, and it's sort of approximately along the line where the speakers are, in the center there.
Oh,
Our
we didn't
experience,
grab a picture of it though. Is it so? It's mounted.
it's hung, yeah,
It's permanently
it's
mounted.
ceiling mounted permanently.
Oh, yeah, I see it
It's,
here. Is
yeah,
that it?
you might be able to bring it. Let me stop the share, and you can bring it up on the other.
But you mentioned that it wasn't really working for you.
Right. Back in the day when,
There's the screen. Yeah.
yeah,
Where's the projector?
it's probably just in front of the top of the.
The photo.
You
Okay.
just cut off of the photo.
Oh, so it's
Um,
mounted on the ceiling.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not bright enough if the curtains are open, to do a credible job. And
Yeah.
once we started getting to situations where we were seeing some of that overflow into the wings, it became more and more problematic to use that, as well as the annoyance of putting the screen down, putting it up. Yep.
Listening to the fan on the projector.
Exactly. It's
Mhm.
better to have a white wall back there if you're going to do that.
Okay, great. All right, so at this point, we're gonna close off the interview portion. I'm gonna ask Matt and Richard to mute their microphones, and
Okay.
and you all are going to be able to be flies on the wall while the panelists do their thing. We're gonna round table this information. We're going to analyze it and discuss it and bat some ideas around to come up with some possible some recommendations and possible solutions. So panelists, where do you want to begin?
Overall, it looks like they're fairly well situated as far as the technology is concerned. What I'm taking away from this is they've got some space problems and some mounting problems. Just, how do we tuck this stuff all away? It's working great as a studio, but it's not going to work great with a congregation in the building. So where do they move it all to? How do they rewire the space? Some issues with the stage being a little bouncy and making the cameras wobble. So some mounting solutions need to be thought up for that.
I think they might need a camera upgrade too, if you want to make it
I don't know.
remotable, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? You might want a PTZ in there somewhere.
It's a tiny chancel, so I'm looking at this going a 3-camera shoot, even though they're statics, would probably be pretty okay. Yeah, PTZ is fun, and maybe a PTZ mount if they want a mover.
Did you watch this the Easter Sunday service on YouTube?
No, I didn't get a chance to do that.
They do use all 3 of their cameras, but I'm wondering if maybe one camera might do the job of all those.
Yeah.
So I was looking and thinking that the cameras themselves and the distance that's there, I would mount them on the ceiling at the front of that stage area. That gets away from the bounce that they've got. And it puts them in a permanent position. Permanent positions on cameras means that your setup each week is much, much faster because they're literally, you shouldn't need to realign them each time because having cameras on tripods every single time you've got to reposition them.
Yeah, they could potentially flank there, go up to the cove molding over the 2 doors and mount up in that area and shoot from 45s.
And then just, the only problem with doing that sometimes, Mark, as you know, is you get, people don't know where to look and you end up with that sort of view. But I would mount them up there and then start there. So as you said, Mark, the big thing is cabling and just trying to make it slightly more permanent.
Bring all that cabling back to that area that's like.
Well, you're there already, yeah. So you could bring you could bring the cameras even. You can step them forward a foot or so in front of the stage. The ceiling is 9 foot high.
Marty, can we look at the floor plan again, please?
The floor
I can't
plan.
believe we all missed those cove
Richard has the floor,
Or Matt,
or Matt has the floor plan. There we go.
Okay, so the traveler for the drapes looks like it's probably too close to them to mount a camera from the traveler.
Explain traveler, Mark.
Traveler is what you hang the drapes from. Then it
on either
moves, so you
side.
can move the curtains in and out.
See, I
so
was
that's probably
thinking,
close.
I was thinking that you could get away with 2 cameras
Mhm.
mounted on the ceiling in the middle of the open span of the wall. 2 PTZ cameras, and that would give them the ability to use either end of the room
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
and give them 2 possible camera views. If they were going to use 3 cameras, I would put one up.
It doesn't matter which side, either one or
Well, if they're gonna retire the projector, you potentially have a projector mount you can use as the camera mount, and hang from that location. There's a cabling path to it already.
Yeah,
so.
I was going to say it may not be that the mount is there, but the cabling path will be there.
Yeah. Well, some's holding the
was
projector up. So
from what you were saying there, Marty, I'd start with using what you've already got, which is the cameras there, and then move to PTZ cameras at the point. It may not need to be the beginning. 3 static cameras is actually quite a nice amount of, if you mounted 2 in the middle, you mount one as a wide angle, one as a close up, a better close up, and then you've got one at one of the edges. I wouldn't want to have them in the middle of the open area because I assume things come in and out and people move tables in and out, and in the middle of the area they're going to get knocked, when if it was more towards the stage it's going to be less likely to get knocked.
Well, it is a 9-foot ceiling?
Yeah. I'm nearly 9 foot.
projector's got to be high enough so people don't. Okay, so yeah, 3 camera shoot, one wide, one pulpit, one piano.
Yeah,
something like that, and it would probably make a pretty good looking.
And you won't get and because you're moving it back from where, if you look at where they are currently, where the cameras are, the angle of this shot is going to not be that dissimilar to what they have currently. It's just because you're further back and you're slightly higher, so you're going to be shooting down, but you're going to end up with a similar-ish sort of view. I couldn't see close up on the cameras, but I'm pretty sure they're 20 times.
I was going to say, do we know the specs of the cameras? I didn't think.
No, but I think they look like the Canons, and I'm pretty sure they're 20 times zoom.
I think they're Sony's.
Opticals.
I think they're Sony's. What are they?
They said Panasonic, didn't they?
I think I saw. I looked them up. I think I saw one was a 12 times, and
that will struggle.
Sony's.
They're all Sony's.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think they're 30s. The 2 little Sonys, and then the other one is much less.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But I think that So they.
Sorry to intrude on your meeting.
It's okay.
No, it's fine.
Sometimes you can't answer every question.
Saved us a phone call to you.
So the key thing is cabling them up, and taking into thoughts about. I know 2 years. They've only got a 2-year lease, but nobody knows how long anything is going to be. Particularly, if things get delayed. So if I was cabling them up, I'd be cabling up with. As always, my suggestion of it's going to be something like Ethernet, running Ethernet to the cameras, because you can power them even if the cameras themselves currently aren't power over Ethernet. You can get a converter for most of them, so you can run the power over the Ethernet cable to extend that. You're not going to be able to control these cameras, as in make any changes, because they're not.
Right.
I very rarely have seen one that sort of size that you can digitally. You have to get up onto it and do it.
If you can't control the camera, are you also giving up the option to have remote control of the camera, like remote off-site? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You are.
So that's that. We want to think, far in the future.
Thinking about staffing.
Let's remember, we have a budget of between $5,300 and $7,300.
My question, I forgot to ask this earlier. Does that include labor? I kind of hope not, because it can almost be.
Budget's a budget.
If we have $5,300 worth of equipment, that's one thing. Or if we have 25.
I think we just met the labor.
I'm still in the plan to spend $300 and then $5,000 for us to fly out there. So I don't know where you're going.
Oh, that's right. We still have the site visit to do.
That's right.
That was all I was
labor
like.
is cheap in Mexico.
That's it. That's it.
All right,
No,
neighbors to Mexico. So I think that we have a lot of other considerations that we need to talk about. We got to go through pretty much all of the
that's-
8 or 7 technical priorities. So I think that starting off with these 3 cameras, as Leo suggested, wide, pulpit, and piano, probably be a good plan to get started. And then, as things move along, they can try and raise some additional money for pan-tilt zoom cameras.
Yeah, if they decide they want to get
And you
fancy.
can always start with just one, and then
It
move
could
up from
always
there.
be. It could always be that the cameras are mounted. We said ceiling mounted, but there's just as easily we could be talking about wall mountings. They're
What's
very
the material
similar.
on the wall, and are you allowed to drill into?
There are some
material?
limitations. That's the only concern. That's why I was suggesting the projector's got to be hanging from like a pipe mount
Yeah.
or something. So there's a good solid piece of steel up there that they can hang a camera from if they wanted to use that.
And also, well, you've also got speakers already mounted on the wall. So in theory,
Oh, are they on the wall?
they are mounted
It
on
looked
the walls.
like they were.
I don't know. We should ask what the
Matt,
walls are
I'm
made
pretty
out of.
Matt's
sure.
got his hand up. It looks like they're hanging from the Traveler, but I couldn't
I think,
tell.
Leo, I think you have to let Matt talk because we need to
I
know
haven't
what the
I haven't
walls
locked him off. He can talk.
are. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'm just walking through to get to the bathroom, so I'll just comment on your conversation
What are the
again.
walls
No.
made out of? And can
So-
you mount something to them?
So the walls are brick, and yes,
white?
we can. They're brick,
Yeah.
and yes, we can, provided we put the holes in the mortar, and we've done that in numerous cases. Now that projector is actually hung by aircraft wire. It's not got
Oh.
As we
Okay.
say around here, this is Mexico.
You used a bar rig,
Adaptation.
a restaurant after all, right?
Adaptation is key. Adaptation.
Can I just very quickly, Matt? When you said the walls are brick, it looks like they are. So I'm going to say they're rendered over. I don't know what the right
Sorry,
terms.
that's correct.
Stucco.
For those walls, it's stucco, and the speakers are mounted on a little.
So the stucco you can
bracket.
drill into.
Yeah, we can
'cause
drill
you're
into
not. You can drill and mount anywhere along the side of there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Exactly.
But it's just the end. It's just the end wall, which is brick, and the ceiling, which is brick, which you've got to stay away from
The actual
that natural the brick itself.
Right. Right.
So that talking about the speaker mountings brings me to a question that I had a little bit earlier. I was, kind of holding a triangle up to the screen. These are 90 by 90s, Jay, and I'm wondering, I was trying to figure out if there were people sitting in the shade on these things, whether they were getting good enough coverage from these.
They're tiny JBLs, aren't they?
Yeah, but they're, these Control 28s can put out a fairly good noise.
Okay.
I was worried more about the fact that they're 90 by 90s.
When you say 90, you mean 90 degrees?
The dispersion, yeah.
The dispersion, right? Okay.
So
So
that's 90 degrees horizontal, but also 90 degrees vertical.
Well, that would be essentially a sort of a conical coverage, but I didn't think that box would really give you a constant 90 by 9. Maybe it will.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I think they have dome tweeters in them.
They do, but they're kind of horn loaded, but still.
So my concern would be splashing sound off of that dome ceiling. And let's see, and it looks like they're positioned in a way that the people sitting in the wings are shaded by the walls, and they're not.
Well, and
They're
that
not
was
right
the
at the
thing when I was
openings.
playing with the triangle. I was also trying to figure out what the sight lines are and where people would likely sit so they could see, and therefore they would, by default, end up in the somewhat on axis.
Mhm.
But boy, my first reaction was, boy, they really ought to be tilted out just a few more degrees.
yeah.
I think they said already that somebody's done some sound checks and there were some issues with the sound in the past.
Yeah, but I
I
would
can
be
imagine.
interested in asking more questions about whether there have been any complaints about dead spots in the coverage.
Okay.
Yeah, especially for people outside.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, because anybody sitting close and in the shade is close enough that they can pretty much hear everything anyway.
Absolutely. And anybody sitting out, go on. Sorry, Jay.
A couple of things I'm wondering, and this kind of went back to my question about ambient noise, is to whether, and I'm going to throw this question back out for Matt, is that if the speaker system is off and somebody's talking without a microphone, are they generally fairly audible in the sanctuary space? If where you have line of sight to somebody who's speaking, are you having to increase the level of speech substantially in order for people to be adequately heard and understood, or are you lightly using it as a sound reinforcement system just to bring them up above whatever ambient noise you have?
I would say that people with good voices can be well heard. But of course, we have a lot of presenters, lay presenters, quiet talkers. And also we have a lot of folks who have hearing limitations. So we probably run it a little louder than most situations.
And if I missed this, forgive me, is there any wireless hearing assistance available to the hard of hearing, or is that completely absent the system design?
We had an old FM based thing that was really, really not good, and nobody used it. We'd love to come up with something better. It's kind of not the immediate thing, but we really want to do that.
Do most people have smartphones?
Yes, I think there are a few folks that are just kind of religiously resistant to carrying smartphones, but other than that, yeah.
Okay.
I think we should.
I think
that. Yeah, I know where we're going with it, but I'm wondering if that's outside of our scope on this for the moment.
Yeah, it could be.
I was just asking the question for a later discussion.
If they did need better coverage, there's a million mounting options outside.
Yeah,
there are.
Putting another small pair of speakers up outside.
Underneath that little
exactly
is that a shelf.
Yeah, it's all wood. It's like a million mounting options.
I think that roof is wood there, isn't it?
Leo, can you spotlight that picture?
I wanted to just comment on something that Jay was thinking. Remember that there's we have electronic instruments, keyboards and such, that don't have their own amplifiers. So all that sound is exclusively coming out of the loudspeakers.
Right.
No, understood. I appreciate that. I was just trying to get an idea of the how much weight the loudspeaker had in terms of contribution. And clearly, if you have electronic instruments and you don't have like a monitor speaker or a powered amplifier to plug your keyboard into, where that becomes the source as opposed to the sound system being the only place the electronic instruments are able to be reinforced.
Can I just ask, from this view that we're looking here, Matt, Marty, have you got your pointer?
Yep.
Is the raised stage, is it where Marty is there, or is it which end is which? That's the raised end.
That end, yes.
That's the raised end. So the main room what we're looking at is everything that we're looking at is the other end over there.
Right. So the chancel and the lectern are to the right.
There to the right.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
So
good catch. I was thinking the other way around.
Okay.
No, I was trying to work it out because I just thought the
bar
wall
really
was
interferes there, doesn't it?
Well, it's not just that the bar interferes; it's just that the depth of that wall is really short, and that was what was throwing me. So that's it. And then you go out all the way. So the room really is from the curtains, the hanging curtains we're seeing here on the left, right through to the hanging curtains we're seeing to about there. Yeah, that's it. That's so those
Is that the whole
that's
space?
that's the whole space left to right is there. And then
Without
we're
the
seeing that there. That's great. And so if we're looking at the wall above the hanging curtains, on the inside wall, the inside wall mark.
You can't
That's
get
it. That's it there.
Oh, yeah.
There is effectively a white stucco wall all the way along the top from the front to the back,
Yeah,
which
there's
looks
camera
like,
mounts.
well, either camera mounts, but I'm also thinking that running cables from the front to the back could be running trunking. Is that the right term? All the way from the front to the back without
It is in Britain.
actually. Yeah, we call it trunking. I don't know what you call it. Sorry, I don't know. So do you have a different word? Plastic conduit? What do you call it?
Conduit.
There's
or
surface raceway. Surface raceway.
Surface raceway.
So
yeah.
okay, right, okay, thank you. So you could run that from front to back fairly easily.
Right.
It looks like you could run it across the top there. Thank you.
And they say, and they
really
did. He did
useful.
say that the cove molding provides a certain amount of mounting ability.
Can you
as
go
well.
back to the picture above, Marty? Now that we know, now we've understood that. Oh, that picture. That's it. Sorry. That's exactly. So now
The
we
one
can
with
see
the
those
cameras?
two. No. Well, it doesn't matter. They're the same, aren't they? The same. It's the same picture with or without the cameras, but we can see how those two elements link together. That's really useful.
I think some extra fills for speakers would be very helpful, especially if you want to try to bring them out under the wings.
I mean, if you need to provide coverage to the patio, yeah, it would require dedicated loudspeakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they wouldn't need to be very large either, I don't think. It's a fairly small space.
Right.
Unless you were going to, have parties out there and you want to be able to supply sound reinforcement for bands and such, mariachis and
I'll save some money for a mirror ball while you're at it.
Do you want to jump right into the audio, Jay? What would you do with that?
That's the next place to
box?
go. That's the next place. Well, let's see. No, no, actually, so let's do this in order. So the first priority is internet.
Right.
And we haven't really heard about what the internet service is like there.
Matt?
Okay, so we now have two internet providers into the space after that disaster a few weeks ago. One of them is, I think, giving us something like 60 down and 20 or 30 up. And the other one was much slower, maybe 5 and 2, but it's really intended for backup or emergency.
Yeah, that wouldn't be sufficient for an upstream, but yeah, that first one would be enough. Is this the entire facility, or do you have offices and classrooms and such as well?
This is essentially the entire facility. We might add use one of the rooms that was in that other picture, kind of just on the side, as an office, but I think it would not affect the internet. And certainly not be used during a service.
So when you say, Matt, when you said that the internet is coming in, where is it coming in physically? Are you getting a cable into this room for the internet, or is it wireless?
It's coming in on cable, and in fact, it's hard to see, but there's a Wi-Fi modem sitting on top of that audio cabinet. No,
I can
Wi-Fi
see it. Can see it.
modems. Yeah.
Where's the router?
Okay. That is it.
With a built-in router.
Okay.
We're looking at adding some Wi-Fi mesh coverage because the Wi-Fi is so crappy out of those things.
Okay.
All right, good. So you've got good internet coverage, and all you really need is that router there. Maybe you may need a switch to have enough ports to connect to various pieces of equipment, but that's good. It's good. You don't have very extensive internet needs or network needs around the facility because it's so small. So, okay, I think you got that covered. The next priority is sound. So let's go there.
Okay.
So while I appreciate that somebody is doing a pre-mix of the music, that person can't really be making adjustments while they're performing, and they can't really hear what they're doing either. So I would recommend moving that function out to the main mixer, because they can hear exactly what everybody else is hearing, which you can't do from the stage. And they can also make adjustments for doing from any adjustments in channel levels that need to be made for the stream, which could be very different from what is being fed to the loudspeakers. So I would mix music at the main mixer.
Okay. So there was a picture earlier of the mixer. Can you just bring that up for us, Marty? Ooh.
I'm going to defend the music director and say he's not going to want to mix at the main mixer. He's got a good one going. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just saying.
Okay. So practically, so what you've done here, which is great, is you've used the full facilities of the XR12, because the limitations of this one mixer is that there is no USB connection to the PC. So you've got around that by putting connections in and out to get around it. First thing, completely nothing to do with music, but important. All of the XRs do have wireless, so you can control them with an iPad. It's every single model, the wireless on them is rubbish. Everybody will tell you the first thing to do is turn the wireless off on it, connect in a cable, which I'm pretty sure the 12 can do, and to turn off the wireless so that the control is there. Going into the control side itself, what you can actually do, and I've got to change my camera. Sorry, just give me 2 seconds. And I will
You want me to find a picture of the back of that XR?
No, there isn't anything on the back. Just a power connection. There's nothing else.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, there's no the user interface is your wireless device.
So this is actually its slightly bigger brother of 16, but it's virtually identical. And this is a live connection to a synagogue that I'm able to connect to. There's a couple of things that I would suggest you do. So as you said, you're running the main mix to the room is on your main left, right, and then in here, this is the bus that they run out to in this case to Zoom. And the red mixer that's halfway along, you can see is Zoom, which, as you said, you keep the zoom down.
Leo,
sorry, there's a red one on the. So there's 4 greens, then there's a blue,
right.
Light blue.
Right.
Then there's one called PC Sound, and the next one along is Zoom.
Yeah, gotcha.
So very similar. When you're in the main mix, you've got Zoom is on because it needs to be in the room. But as you say, there's the one to the mix to back to Zoom isn't. The key things I would suggest you can do, you can see on this mixer, there's a little blue X list just above each of the channels. Can you just about make that above the faders? Yep. Can you see that?
Yeah, it's right below the decibel level readout.
Yeah, the levels.
Yep.
So this is auto mix, and your mixer supports auto mix as well. And if you turn on auto mix on there, in the case of this, you'll see you have auto mix on the 4 microphones, which are the green, and you have on Zoom. But what you can't ever do is you must never turn auto mix on anything that's an instrument, because you don't want that. Because if you turn on the auto mix, what auto mix does is it takes the loudest sound and it will duck the others, so it just takes priority of one sound. So this is a really simple way of doing it for hybrid. You take the sound from the microphones and Zoom in as part of auto mix. So if somebody's talking on Automix, if you open the speaker in on Zoom and they start talking, it will cut the microphones in the room automatically. If somebody starts talking in the room, it will cut down the Zoom. So it balances you out by doing auto mix. But as I said, if you start trying to play around with instruments, the minute somebody starts playing, as you can see here, it's got guitar is this light blue, it would literally take over everything else. So that's all supported on your mixer. Matt.
So yes, a question, Leo. Do you have any indication when this is happening?
Yes. Yeah.
Do the sliders?
So unfortunately, I can't. No, what actually happens is, you know how on each of the mixers there is a little sound indicator. There's nobody in the room, obviously, because it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I hope there's nobody in the room. Above, what you can't quite see is to the left, to the right of where that little X is, or where the mixer is. That there is normally the indicator, the sound indicator, comes from the bottom up, and it goes up. You get another one which comes from the other side, which comes down as it turns the other ones off.
Are you saying there's like an LED meter that's sitting right to the right of the fader?
Yes, there is.
Okay,
there is.
okay.
That's thank you
Right.
for a better. Thank you, Jay. It definitely, it's trying to explain it is.
Words.
So you're able to see the channel activity when
You're able to see the channel activity, and it as it ducks the others, you see which one it does it. So all of the XRs support this, but it's that little X. There is actually two. There is no. I'm not going to go in there. It's not necessary. I'm going into the weeds.
So just to shortcut this a little bit. So what I think you've said, one of the reasons you're using it this way is that you're sort of you're balancing the level between a live microphone and the return from the far end in Zoom. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so I won't. So if somebody's talking from Zoom, it will give all the gain to the Zoom. And if somebody starts talking in the room, they're gonna start. Now it's a gain sharing mixer. So the way this works, and somebody popped into the Zoom chat, I saw Dugan come up, and yes, that's the Dan Dugan design patent for a gain sharing auto mixer.
Yes, it
and
is.
a lot of people are using it. And Behringer may license it from Dugan, or maybe they're just doing it. I'm not going to go into that part, but the value of this is twofold. The main reason the Dugan auto mixer came about was because of the simple fact, every time you double the number of open microphones. So if I have one microphone turned on and I bring that microphone up until you get feedback, and I back that microphone down, that's the maximum amount of gain that you can get through the system without feedback. If I were to open a separate microphone and try and bring it up to that same level as the first microphone, I would have to bring them both down, because we've ran into the limit of number of open microphones. So this helps you manage the feedback part. It's really useful for that. I had never thought of using this in the way you're describing, Leo, where you have it automatically manage the level for both the far end return from Zoom. That's clever, and I would not have thought of that.
Yeah, no, I have to ask a question though, because my understanding and in my experience with auto mixers and the way that they duck is that if you have two microphones that are picking up the same source, the mixer will bring up one of those faders and duck the other one. If you have two microphones that are picking up two different sources, they will both be allowed to pass audio at full volume. Minus an adjustment for the number of open microphones, as Jay was saying. So what we're talking about here, what you're suggesting, is sound from the room and sound from Zoom. Those are two different audio sources playing two different things Therefore, one will not duck the other.
It catches it. It does catch it. I mean, this isn't perfect. It never, one thing you can never ever do in audio, there is never such a thing as a mixer, as we all know, that the number of times people say, can't you just install a mixer, leave it and it'll work automatically? It doesn't work.
You can for some things, but you can't do it for like music, right?
So because you're trying to put the mix through, so you're trying to put the mix through, we find this captures most of the it captures. We still feel that you need to control the faders, but it will, by putting the mix in this way, we've captured it. Now I realized the whole thing was on mute. I've turned the mute off, as you can now see. Can you see the really thin blue lines?
Yes.
So if there was actually noise in the rooms, those are the blue lines. They're they are effectively the bits that will move the blue lines as you come down. And the key bit, as you can see, the problem, the really painful thing on the 12 and the 16 is you can't turn off a channel. If you mute a channel, it's muted across all of the things.
Outputs.
You have to all outputs. So you actually physically have to shift the fader down on Zoom on the streaming channel.
Yeah, that's the same on the 18.
But on the 32, you can actually turn off a channel.
Right. So so here's a picture of the physical part of the mixer.
Yeah, great.
So
let me just bring that in. Hold on. That's it. Thank you.
It has only 4 mic preamps, so 4 microphone inputs.
Yeah.
And the rest are all line level inputs, which can be used for instruments or computer outputs,
or
etc.
wireless microphones.
Or wireless microphones.
That have closer to a line level output.
That was my question. When you said that if you add a guitar into that mix, Leo, that messes it all up. Is that because the guitar is line level?
No, it messes up because you don't want a guitar. Is nothing to do with an open microphone. So you will never want to duck a microphone. What happens when you do it, and people, I've seen it so many times, they put in the piano, they add the X in there. The guy starts playing the piano and the voices in the room are turned off.
Right. Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with it.
You can't
just don't want to do
music.
it.
That doesn't work. Auto mixing music
Not
doesn't
needed.
work.
It's not
but
needed.
For me, the limitation is the 4 wired microphones. Yes, you can add additional wireless microphones here.
Yeah.
You could add an outboard preamp if you were so inclined, but I would certainly recommend not doing that and scaling up the mixer to a larger capacity.
Yeah.
I know where you're going, Marty. You are finish where you're going, and I'll explain where you're going. Go.
All right. The other limitation here is this USB port is not for outputting for recording.
No,
this
it's
is for
a complete
putting
waste of time.
A USB stick in here for recording to a stick and for playing back music, which doesn't really work very well in any of the X series models. So interfacing. So one of the really nice things about a digital mixer in our workflow here is the ability to digitally connect the mixer to a computer and take any or all of the channels into the mixer either separately or
I'm going to
mixed.
stop you. I'm going to stop you, Marty, because this mixer doesn't do it.
I know it doesn't do it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's one of the beautiful things about utilizing a digital mixer in this workflow is having that ability, which this mixer does not have.
No. I'm working with. I'm doing the Apollo 13 and working with the bits that we have rather than the bits we'd like to have, and what we can do with this mixer, the mixer they have, which is the 12.
But given that the XR, so if we were to stay with something similar to this and move up to the XR 18, which has 16 inputs and 16 outputs, that would give them as more channels than it would give them enough channels, not only for what they need right now, but enough channels to mix music if they wanted to, plus additional channels for growth. And they would also get the
Absolutely.
multi-channel USB port to interface to the computer so that they don't have to go analog out of the mixer into the computer, find a way to digitize it, come back out of the computer analog, go into this analog. It's all handled by the USB port.
Yeah, which at the moment, what they've done is they've come in and out of the analog in the computer, and you can always, there's always an argument that once you go digital, once you've got the mix into a digital or the sound into digital, you shouldn't go back to analog and then back to digital. But unfortunately, unfortunately isn't the right word. But you know, you live with what you have,
And it's not the worst thing in the world to have to take an analog out to get into an analog input for a computer interface. But I want to touch back on something else that was mentioned, and that was monitoring. And I don't know this line of mixers specifically, but I know a number of digital mixers will allow for multiple iPad control, where you could have somebody control their own monitor mix with their own GUI on an iPad independently without letting them fool around with the main mix. Does this support this mixer support that functionality?
This particular mixer has 2 auxiliary outputs in addition to left and right. So
yeah, no.
So you can't say to 2 musicians, here, you have aux 1, you have aux 2, and your iPad interface lets you create your own monitor mix. This won't do it.
Well, but you also need outputs for Zoom.
Well, no, I understand. I'm just trying to understand the framework of the functionality that
the 12
brings to the market.
The 12. I mean, we've discussed it in the past where you can make a pseudo mix by saying that the left does the whole of the room and the right does that, and Mark's gone through that in detail in the past. Mm-hmm. But on the 12, as Marty said, you don't have it. On the 16, as you can see, I've got 6 buses, and on the buses I can send the buses out. It has a control, and I can't remember what it's called. It's an in the Ethernet. There is the ability to send it out to an external.
So it actually do an external personal mixer, if I recall.
Yeah,
they actually
it supports
make a piece of hardware.
Yes,
and
they
that
do.
all the basically it's a digital bus. All the channels go to the personal mixer. And from that device, you have your own local analog audio output. You plug in your headphones.
Correct. It has and it has a stage monitoring device. Yeah.
We have half an hour left. Just letting you know.
But that's it. The one other little trick, small tiny trick, I was going to say, if you is on the mixer, you can actually, it's just a really tiny thing, is where you've got 2 faders, you can lock faders together, you can lock channels together on the mixer to stereo pair it.
So,
all right. So we need to move on.
Can I jump? Yeah, let me jump into one more question about this. So if we're going to put supplemental speakers to cover the patio, we're going to want discrete outputs for those speakers. They're going to need to be EQ'd differently. They may need a different level reference than the master main output. To me, that would make a case for upgrading the mixer. Because we may want more outputs. The concept of having enough inputs to mix everything in one place. I would agree that's
so for $1,000, I think the XR18 is a good investment.
Yeah, I think stepping up is not a budget breaker, and we're kind of reaching consensus that they need just a little bit more functionality, especially considering they might be building and they might be expanding the size of their space a little bit.
Just to explain, going back to the mixer really quickly, if I've clicked the right button.
Are you in the weeds, Leo? Just asking.
No, I'm just going to say, I'm just going to say really quickly, in the mixer, when you do what you've just said and you send it out on another bus, you go into the effects here, and the effects here, you then create the digital delay that you'll require for the auxiliary speakers. So just to explain to everybody, when you've got two sets of speakers and you've got another set which are reinforcing the sound traveling from the first speakers, you have to delay the second speakers because the electricity cable is faster than the physical sound, and you end up with hearing like an echoing effect. So you always delay so that everything, it's very, very small delays so that it sounds like you just imagine it as waves coming onto the beach.
And it means you're also going to need another couple of amplifier channels. So getting away from the powered mixer is mandatory. And, maybe either going to a standalone 2-channel amplifier or a 4-channel amplifier so that you've got channels for the patio as well as for the interior.
Yep.
Okay.
Which is also not a budget buster.
No, but all these things add up somewhat, but
certainly.
Next, we're
Next
being
priority.
told by JLo next.
All right. So after sound is lighting. We discussed what they have.
Beef that up a little bit. I did.
So
I did watch the Sunday service. Sorry, and the woman that was standing in front of that beautiful backdrop had no light on her face that I saw. I saw maybe a little bit of the thing that the panel that's on the side, but there was nothing there that had her stand out from the background.
So I think that in addition to the 2 panel lights that they have, which can be mounted on the ceiling, to give a nice even wash to the stage, that the track lights, and I wasn't able to tell the distance from the back wall of the chancel to where the track lights are, how far in front of the stage front, if you will, they are. But changing the lamps there, maybe repositioning that, maybe adding a couple of fixtures, could probably give them all they need.
I was going to say exactly the same, and with the fact that you replace those with some sort of LED fixture, the power draw is going to be probably less than they're currently doing anyway. So there shouldn't be any problem with it overloading the cabling.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mark, any thoughts on the lighting in that room? You do all of the lighting. I can't hear you.
I was just considering what you were saying and giving it another thought. I don't have anything to contribute just yet.
I think we have to always remember that because it's Mexico, we have to have the sepia color because that's what we're used to. We all think everything in Mexico is a sepia color because that's what we see on TV.
I've been very quiet about the fact that I know this is where really good tequila comes from. So,
okay, all right. So moving on, Marty, we're going to get shouted at. Move on, quicker.
All right. I was just looking at the live questions channel here, just to take a pause. I promised we would. So Keith Miller mentions, if the main mixer has no controls, they're not reachable, then the iPad connection is unreliable. Do you lose control of the mix?
you would.
iPad is certainly one way to control it. You can also use a laptop. But as we mentioned before, using the Wi-Fi unit on this mixer is not advisable. We would tie this mixer into the Wi-Fi that is put into the room, which would be much more reliable. And or you could do a wired connection to a laptop or a tablet that has an Ethernet port on it.
There is also a third-party control interface that could be used that interfaces cleanly with the Behringer units. In fact, there are several work surfaces.
And Behringer actually has a control unit called the X Touch series. Yeah. There are 3 of those. They can control the XR series.
You can even hook up a Mackie Huey to the thing.
Yeah, there are ways to do that. Does the piano have its own speaker, or does the pianist only hear what comes through the mixers and the room speakers? Well, we talked about the need for stage monitors or in-ear monitors. for the musicians to be able to hear each other.
Yet another
And-
argument for stepping up the
Yes,
desk.
absolutely. Although that could be submixed kind of as well. The XR18, I believe, does have the personal monitor mix capabilities. Rob McKinnon says, so my concern about lighting is how you would spotlight the speaker button, not the remote display they were talking about adding on the wall behind the podium.
I'd like to come that when we talk about where they put the screens in a minute about
Yeah,
that one.
exactly.
But
Okay.
we need to get to that because it's on. I think it's the sixth one down. Isn't it?
All right. So are we, any other comments about lighting? I think, or have we covered that for now?
No.
Okay. Cameras is next. We talked about cameras. I think we talked about, we talked about a couple of different options. Mounting the existing cameras in various places of the room. And that can be experimented with, actually, looking at different camera angles. Potentially stepping up to one or more pan-tilt zoom cameras at a later date. So the next one is video systems, like switching, interconnects, streaming, and such. So they have an A10 Mini Pro, which is a really, really nice, fairly inexpensive hardware switcher with 4 HDMI inputs. And they have a computer which could potentially run vMix or OBS if additional sources are needed. I think they have that pretty well covered because I don't think they'll
I
need
think that's fine.
4 inputs. That mixer also has a still store, so you can store slides that you can switch through without needing additional inputs or an external computer. They have that other computer that can go into the mixer, like they're doing right now. So I think they have video pretty well covered for now.
Yeah, I think the only thing will be to do with liturgy and other things that they want to put up onto the screens, but we'll cover that in a minute.
Well, the next one would be projection, so we can use that to dovetail.
Can we bring back really quickly the layout picture?
I was going to make an argument to upgrade the projector as opposed to putting dual screens somewhere. I think dual screens on the chancel is way too much stuff back there. Possibly even, and then the other alternative of putting them on a cart. Also not, why wouldn't you just upgrade the projector and use the screen that's there?
Because you're going to obscure the screen. If any, I mean,
I
literally,
think so.
You've got, you know,
Bring the table up a little bit, and how far down does the screen go?
The other thing is the projector's hitting the minister right in the headlights. I mean, it's,
Matt, can you just bring up the? Have you got the
movable
layout?
chancel.
Yeah.
It's not mounted.
Okay. I mean, I would, looking at where, so one of the key problems that people do is if you're going to put, wherever you put the screens, I would make sure that the cameras do not hit the screens, as in, so you don't want to have that feedback of people on Zoom being in the shot.
Right.
Right.
Although everybody thinks at the first time, oh, that's going to be really good because that gives that ambience. Invariably, the people on Zoom are not necessarily as cognate as the people in the room, and it's
Cognizant of what they're doing? Do you mean they're doing things like
that may be
like
another
eating
way
a
of
bowl of
saying it.
cereal during
picking
service.
their
Yeah.
nose?
right,
Exactly.
Yes.
So actually, you don't necessarily want that, and I'm looking at the space and the width. Can you remind me, Matt? Where did you say you were thinking about putting the screens?
On either side of the chancel, he said.
Yeah.
So
sort of like that.
right in the corners, on the edges.
Yeah, or maybe angled, which might be dependent on lighting or reflection or whatever.
Right, lighting is going to be important.
Do we know
Camera
the
angles are going to be
dimensions?
important.
Do we know the dimensions of a 70-inch diagonal screen? Because that's going to take up some real estate.
It's big. It's big.
Oh, I don't know that I would
Not a
use
huge
70s in
amount.
here. no.
Well, but that was, I mean, that
Yeah,
was
but that's where they're going out to get.
Well,
He said,
hang on.
I think he said 75s actually.
Oh, so, but again, we're also talking. We've got a pretty good throw distance to the furthest viewer, and this was mocked up.
Especially if they're
with,
outside.
Right. Well, I don't know that these are going to be visible at all outside if they're back on this wall.
How does somebody seated in the wing see that all the way back?
I think they would see the
wouldn't.
screen on the opposite side of the chancel.
So, just
Go back, looking at the floor plan, that doesn't look yet. I mean, now you're going to be pretty far away.
Yeah,
If you're
that's
looking
why
at
I
the
was
opposite
saying.
side.
That's
So-
why I was saying put screens on roll-around stands and put them outside, so that you're
that's-
bringing them closer to the people.
Is that a
the
second set of
outside.
screens?
Yeah, second set of screen. You
Okay.
need one for each side.
Yep.
And then you could probably just have one inside the chancel area for people inside the room. Because it's only, 38 feet deep, less the distance of the depth of the raised stage. So probably 30 feet is the farthest distance.
Again, what's the content they intend to display there? The remote people only,
Well,
or
I mean, if
other
you're
content?
you're putting PowerPoint slides up with really large text,
Yeah,
YouTube,
maybe 3 lines of text, you might be okay.
sure.
YouTube videos, content
it-
from typical services.
There are
Okay.
screen calculators and guidelines published by Avix, and it would be worth checking that the screen size requirement based on distance, before making a determination on size of screen.
Yeah, we could do that, while we're preparing our document.
it would be my recommendation to keep the screens more towards where the speakers are. To bring them forward to or
And then
that sort
you
of
could
place rather
use
than
smaller screens as well.
and go for smaller screens.
I was
that
thinking
fit
of
in.
that. My concern would be people walking into them.
Yeah,
But you
I was
could
thinking
mount
that
them
part as
higher up.
well.
You could mount them above the speakers.
Yep.
So if you think about when you've been in, if any of you have ever been in a live studio environment, typically you have screens that they're at an angle above whatever you're watching on the set. So you mount them up and there's mounted at an angle facing down, so they look almost like they're speakers, so they mount there. And the nice thing about that is it means your eye line means you can look up, you're going up to down, rather than there. And I think you end up with a better framed version of the environment is some of the thoughts I would have. I think I would feel like a 75-inch screen. I mean, a 75-inch screen is effectively about the size of that picture at the back. Is that that sort of size in my head? Am I right? It's probably even
Yeah, but a
bigger than that.
75-inch screen would probably be 60-something inches tall.
Yeah. So if you look at
I'm
Sorry,
looking
I
it
don't-
up now.
There's a formula for that.
Yeah,
what is
I
so
don't
there
know
is a
what
red.
aspect ratio equals. I'll find it.
It's big. It's big.
Yeah, it's big. And it's tall, right?
Yeah.
So
A 75-inch diagonal is 65.4 inches wide and 36.8 inches tall.
all right.
36.
So now we're 3 foot down from a 9-foot ceiling.
right.
That doesn't work if you're
Yeah.
not going against the rear of the chancel.
Effectively, a 75-inch screen is the size between the white bar across the middle down to the top of the
To the audio cabinet.
audio cabinet. It's that wide or that high.
That high.
because
Yeah.
So
you
I
can
think
count
something
bricks
like
as standard size.
So if you were to bring them more forward and mount them around where the speakers are, I would think that even a 42-inch screen would probably
Would
be
do much better. Maybe big. Well, yeah.
maybe a 50, but
Yeah,
something
you
format.
need to
10-minute warning.
experiment. You need to experiment, and so then you're also got to remember that you've got to be able to get, not only have you got to get power, which is pretty standard to it, you've also got to get programmed to it.
Yep.
And programmed to TV, there are 2 or 3 standards here that Mark can help out. One, Mark, do you typically push them with what's the standard that projectors use? What's that called? The Ethernet cable that has also the
Are
program.
you talking like HD base T?
That's it. Thank you. Thank you,
Oh,
Jay.
okay. I was wondering where you were going. It's like,
Yeah,
you could use
yeah.
an HD base T style device to get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. So that.
However, at this distance, so from the back of the room to where those speakers are is less than 30 feet. You could run a good HDMI cable. Make it really
you could
easy.
use a really good HDMI cable would do it.
Yeah.
Sure.
What I would suggest would be to get an SDI 8-port amplifier, which are pretty cheap, and then run each screen with a SDI, and then it means you can move it because that cable is very robust. You can then wheel them outside, or you can put another cable. You could leave a cable hanging.
The only
outside that
difficulty
you
is
do.
finding an inexpensive display that has SDI as an input. Most displays don't have SDI on the back.
I would.
Yeah, you'd have to convert that coming out of the ATEM.
I'd convert it. The converters are about $60, and then you could just
hang a
you could
converter
hook
on the back
those
of
up,
the TV.
and you just hook those. You literally Velcro it onto the back of the TV with a half a foot HDMI cable, and then you've got an SDI connection, so the TV becomes SDI.
Yep, that would be an option.
And then it's done.
HDMI is also another option. So depending on budget and wiring path. So and the particular monitors, right?
The other nice thing about doing it with the SDIs, the Blackmagic SDIs, is they're daisy chainable. So you can come into one, and then you run the same. The SDI will then go straight out to the next one. So if you had a TV on the left wall and then one on the wall outside, you don't have to run 2 cables as you do with HDMI. You can literally run one SDI to it, and then you just run a daisy chain across to it. So you just keep going. You could go halfway down the road by just keep repeating it if you wanted to.
Right. I've seen
nice.
HDMI extenders do that as well, where the receivers are daisy chainable.
Yeah, actually, you get those 4-way blocks, and you could do it, but they fight with the sync I find that occasionally you have to keep unplugging and plugging back in to get the sync on. They don't. SDI doesn't anyway.
All right. So
Did we get all the priorities in, Marty?
The next and last priority, aside from training is the last priority, but the next one is control systems. So they did just express the desire to keep the number of people needed to operate the system to a minimum. And so how many positions are we looking at? If we have fixed cameras, then we don't have camera controllers. So that eliminates kind of one position. We have camera switching, we have audio mixing, and we have streaming. Right?
Yeah.
Am I missing anything?
No. Well, except for the Zoom participation people, like people watching Zoom participants.
Yeah. So,
but in the room, no.
So there might be some benefit to something like a Stream Deck for quickly controlling functions on the ATEM mixer. They could control functions on the audio mixer. They could control functions on the computers as well. So
I wouldn't say might on that. I'd say absolutely, definitely.
Yeah, they do it well. So that's
that all of the workflow would be, if you're rebuilding the workflow in this, that putting a Stream Deck in is going to take a lot of pain out of certain elements of it.
Yeah, it makes things very simple because
And
you
a
can
Stream
do
Deck
lots
is
of...
relatively affordable, right? Stream Deck.
Extremely.
It is, yeah.
This one is $140, something around that price
that's the one I
range.
have, and the 32 button is $250.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's,
When they come back in stock, right now they're selling
The
for
32s are
twice
back.
that much money. You've seen 32s? My
got one a couple
distributor
of weeks ago.
said they won't see 32s until June.
so yes, there it is. That's a great
Yeah.
amplifier.
So
Although it's way more power than they need for this space.
Oh,
Yeah, so mixer,
controlling the
upgrade the
screen?
mixer, upgrade the amplifier.
sorry, I was still sharing and I was starting to look
Matt's
at
looking at all the stuff he's going to buy.
okay, yeah, you're still screen sharing. Sorry, I didn't look over.
All right, so
So-
let's,
What am I
let's
going
get
to
rid of that.
buy? That's awesome.
Yeah, you could go to Crown Extra on any number of them. That's QSC makes terrific amplifiers, but there's several options for 4 channels.
Hey,
Four
we see
channel amps.
faces again.
So if I understand this right, the recommendations that we've kind of come up with are up your mixer to something a little more capable, like go to the 16. 18, I'm sorry.
Up your amplifier too.
4-channel amplifier, 2 more speakers to better cover outside, possibly a wedge or 2 for monitors for the musicians. Probably a single wedge is all they need. They don't put a lot of people in there.
Just one, yeah.
So there's a 5th amplifier channel, or a powered wedge would work fine.
Or maybe not even a wedge, but a small powered monitor like a Fostex on a mic stand.
Sure,
Yeah, I
sure.
think
A
it's
little
something like
hotspot,
that,
something
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
I've seen them.
Yep, they could use a hotspot nicely. The mounts for the cameras,
Cabling.
improve the network because they don't have quite enough bandwidth to really do this well. And it was expressed in the pre-meeting that networking is an issue for them in Mexico at getting a reliable connection. So something to improve their network. And there's still something of a question about how to go about doing the
Screens.
alternate screens. From a video switching standpoint, they seem to be in really good shape, except for maybe add a Stream Deck in there to smooth out some of the operations and combine it with the audio operations. And I think that kind of covers everything that you're recommending, doesn't it?
There is
And then naturally all the cabling that has to be done.
Racks and furniture. Racks and furniture as well.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we'll go through all of that because
That's the most expensive part of this thing, by the way, is a new rack.
We are all the panelists are going to convene later on, and we're going to go through all this information and document it and write up a formal set of recommendations and a system design. So that there's more work for us to do.
Great.
But the
Okay.
but the idea is that we wanted to have our audience sit in on this conversation where we go through all of this, because this is normally behind the scenes. You don't get to hear and see all of this, and because we're trying to help each other with doing exactly this for each different kind of church, we thought it would be very valuable. There is one more question about video switching that's related to the screens that would be up in the sanctuary. This particular switcher has one mixed output, and so that would mean that the people on Zoom might be seeing the same thing that the people in the sanctuary are seeing, and vice versa. People in the sanctuary are seeing everything that the people on Zoom are seeing, which is not a good situation because you don't need to see everything in the room that the people on Zoom are seeing. You might want to see something completely different. But there is one kind of way around that with this switcher, is it does have a second output which can be switched to any one of the inputs. It doesn't have the same kind of switch. It doesn't have the buttons on the top. You need to do it in software. So it's a little bit wonky to do, but it is possible. So there you have it.
I have one little thing I just wanted to add really quickly.
Yeah.
About the cabling. One of the things is you're going to be looking at you're going to have to relocate a lot of things potentially from where they are at the moment. However, I would actually recommend, in my mind, leaving the audio, and particularly the mixer, where it is, or the new mixer, because you'll be running back over Ethernet and a USB to where the computers are. You don't actually have to move that, or you're going to have to relocate all of the microphone equipment and shifting all of that to the back, and the radio receivers potentially is going to put a lot of strain on it, and leaving it in that corner is a potential that you could do.
Yeah, that's a good point, because all of the audio is at the front of the room.
Yeah, you don't. If you want to, there's
speakers are all in the front of the room. There's really no
and so
to stretch all those wires to the back of the room and then bring them back to the front.
Correct. So the trick to do is use two for the audio is to use two Ethernet cables. One is for the control of it, and the second one is you put a USB extender over Ethernet, which are fairly cheap. So it puts a USB at either end, and you then are able to connect in the amplifier over that. So you get the sound over that USB connection effectively.
So
for the computer, you mean?
Yeah.
If somebody is mixing live, they're going to need to bring the mixer's headphone bus back as well. So that if you wanted to cue, solo, anything. So that needs to be part of the consideration, is how you're going to bring audio back. For doing things like that, you might want a talkback microphone. I mean, it's a small venue.
You can actually run the headphone output over the USB. Let's see, over the USB port.
It does also work. Hold on.
Because I'm doing it here.
So you're saying that you would run the USB from the stage-mounted mixer to the computer located at the same place?
Well, so there's the USB port that connects the physical mixer to the computer that would be controlling it.
Leo. Sorry. Leo sounds like he's diving through his junk drawer.
It does, right?
Sorry.
And that carries
Go ahead, Marty.
the 16 USB outputs from the mixer. Now it would occupy one or two of those USB channels. So we'd have to do that kind of budgeting to make sure that they have enough channels to do that. But that's possible. You
can call me old school. I would rather have a live control surface and remote the I/O back at the chancel.
Yeah, the question I think here is, do you want to run all of the microphone signals to the control desk where the headphone output is? Or do you want to have all the microphone signals go into the mixer at the stage and bring the headphone output to where the control desk is?
Or there is actually use a mixer where you can remote the microphone inputs back at the stage.
You can. Now you're talking about a much different mixer that's going to be much more expensive.
You're going up to the next one. The SD, the 16 doesn't support.
Wait,
32
can you
supports
say that again? I didn't catch that. What's the other alternative?
So where we are right now is we've got a box that's a digital mixing console and a rack mount unit.
Right.
It is controlled can be controlled by a computer.
Right.
It can be controlled by an iPad. There are multiple ways to control it, but it's not a conventional console where you've got a mechanical control surface.
I get it.
And we're using that, and everybody's happy with that. I get it. If you're remoted from the console, yes, you can have that remote control. you're also going to want to have some local I/O at the mix position. All the I/O on the console is back in you're basically, it's
Right.
a console in a box. What
Right.
I'm
No,
saying is,
I just wanted you to repeat
if I
the
have
actual
my,
last thing you said.
so for my druthers, if I'm gonna operate a console, and again, this is preference, I would prefer to have a control surface with faders and buttons and knobs, and also be able to control it remotely with an iPad, because there are times you want to do that. But then that requires you to either bring all the signals to the desk, where the console is control surface, I/O, and mixing board all in one box, or you could have a separate digital I/O that lives back at the stage. Ethernet cable brings it back to the control surface, and you could divvy it up that way. To Marty's point, you're going to spend a little more money to do that. That is the next level of console, where you've got a control surface, you got to pay for that hardware, plus a digital I/O that lives back at the stage. Might be overkill for this situation. It's this all came about because I want local I/O at the front of house position. If I'm going to go to my iPad or computer, I want to solo a channel and put my headphones on. I've got to bring that audio signal. I've got to bring that whole solo bus, PFL bus, out to the front of house.
And good news is that a quick calculation in my head, we still haven't blown the budget.
Yeah, no, I completely agree
but
with you.
I would argue into going back to
It's
Jay's
9:06.
another way of dealing with. Yeah, I'm just going to really quickly. Another way of dealing with Jay's thing. There is a really nice wireless sender for the audio out of the mixer, so that you can put a pair of headphones and you can listen to them
I thought
wirelessly.
you didn't like
could
the
put
Wi-Fi
a
at the
wireless
very
in-ear
end.
system and transmit at the console and put on a belt pack and listen. That would be a way to do it.
Yeah, there's a really nice one for doing that just does that. JLo, I never use wireless for the transmission of the live signal, but for things like listening there.
Okay.
You could, control over wireless isn't a bad thing.
Gotcha.
Right.
An iPad, being able to
You're local
listen
in the
to
room.
this.
Being in
You're
the
local
control
room.
business, I beg to differ.
Okay,
iPads are notoriously bad for dropping signals, for an update in the middle of the service, and suddenly the device goes to hell. I would wire it back to an iPad if I were going to do anything. I wouldn't go wireless.
Okay. Anyway,
So an X32 compact with an SD16 stage box is a little over $2,000.
I'd say it's way overkill.
And where do you put it? Do you put it in the front or in the back?
Well, the stage box goes in the back. The console goes in the stage box goes at the chancel where the existing mixer is.
Right.
And the console itself goes in the back. Front of house.
There are a number of advantages to that. Just to riff a little bit on what Jay was saying, you have those physical faders, which is always preferable to have tactile control over your mixer. It just feels so much better. You have more control.
For us old school people.
You have a lot more, knobs and buttons and switches that you can, instead of navigating around a screen, whether it be a touch screen or a mouse screen.
Which takes more time.
You have everything in front of you. You have additional inputs and outputs at the mixer. So if you're going to be playing back audio from your PowerPoint computer, that audio goes directly into the mixer at the desk, right? Whereas all the stage audio goes into the stage box that's there. And so you're not having to bring audio lines, to the front of the room, to the back of the room, crossing each other, worrying about interference from radio and electrical. It's a much cleaner setup than using.
And you pay a little more for
XR. You're paying a little bit more, but you're getting a whole lot more, and it's a whole lot easier to operate. Yeah,
and they won't throw it away when they get to their new building.
That's right.
Oh,
I'm completely with you. I would much rather mix on a physical console than on an iPad or a computer.
And you know what, though, Marty? I'm going to defend the young people of the group, and if Crystal were here, she might too. Crystal, I'm just saying younger people are used to screens and we are used
Yeah.
to physical.
I'm,
So
I'm, yeah, I'm
I
not
would.
arguing with that. I'm not arguing with that, but I'm saying hands-on to a physical fader and
I am with
hands-on
you.
to all of the controls that are right there in one touch, not four touches.
I know. I'm in your camp.
I'm agreeing with
I'm
you
just
when you're
explaining
mixing
that
a
there's
lot
another
of
camp.
music, but I'm saying for a service related where there's already somebody doing the music side and they're just sending to you, I would say that an XR18 will more than get you. You know, it's like you can always step up. You can always find
continue
another
the
reason to
debate.
go up the tree, but the
It can.
XR18 can.
And
You know.
just to inject a little bit of practicality here, look at the faces and specifically the hair of the people that are involved in the tech at this church. Every one of them was gray haired. So
Yes, but
Yeah.
but eventually it's going to pass down.
But
Eventually.
you're talking about the same kind of mixer in terms of functionality and features. It's only how you access them that changes,
Yes,
right?
I realize that.
It's got all the same processing. It's got inputs. It's got output. It's got faders. It's just the difference between accessing all of them on a computer screen and a mouse, or hands-on physical. That's
yeah, I'll take
right.
a physical surface every day of the week.
I'm going
No,
to
I
play
want-
the gray hair card and say that the hair is gray because I earned it.
You earned it in some of the toughest venues
Flying
too.
faders. You earned it flying those faders. Did we talk about control?
Yes.
You touched on control systems, but what was the outcome of it?
Well, we said I believe we thought that having some automation control that comes down to a button panel that you can automate several functions and features at the push of a single button instead of navigating through screens and
But we're
layers
talking
of
just the
menus.
video, right? Just the video. We're not talking about other
No,
systems.
it could do video, it could do audio, it could do streaming. You know, something like a Stream Deck and the right software to activate it can set up macros and shortcut keys for anything that's in this suite.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Time for the post show.
Time for the
I
post
think we're
shows.
done.
Yeah. So, hey, thank you, everybody. This has been, for me, this has been just fabulous. I hope you agreed. I'd like to thank all of our panelists and our guests today for such a wonderful conversation. You know, this has been very illuminating. I always enjoy our Sunday chats when we plan our shows and we talk about what we're going to talk about. You all are welcome to join us on Sundays at 4:30 Eastern Time, same bat time, same channel. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Perhaps you found it, all right, informative, enlightening, enriching, energizing, and motivating. Watch the Discord for agendas for upcoming shows. We have a couple of really nice things planned for us next week and some week afters. We're going to get to the other two needs assessment winners. So we have the next size up and then the larger church after that. So you can find all of our past show recordings are up. You know, you can find the links on the Discord. We're talking about also potentially live streaming out to Facebook at the same time. So, which will enable people to, you know, be able to watch the show live and not have to go through registering. It's going to be a different experience because they won't be able to participate with questions and answers, but it's an option for a lot of people. And we're getting new people coming in and registering all the time. I'm amazed at how many people are being attracted to our show. And I thank you all so much for spreading the word about what we're doing here. You know, we're going to continue to improve. And, you know, for a lot of us, this is all new ground, as I keep saying. All this live streaming is new ground for many of our churches. And we're figuring all of this out for the first time. So a bunch of us here on the panel are not new at this, and that's why we're here helping out you guys. So the Discord is open. The after show is coming up. Stick around. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Hey, and this is Matt just saying thanks to you all for all this input for us at LCUUF. And I was scribbling like crazy. And I hope that this is useful to a lot of the other folks that are tuning in with us as the guinea pigs. So thank you all.
Thank you for letting us dissect you in front of a whole crowd.
Yes.
And you can probably tell there were cases in there where we might have made the wrong assumptions. And the thing I want to emphasize is this is exactly what happens in consulting. They go away with a certain amount of information. They may not have understood what you said, or they may not understand necessarily everything you want to do. So the illustration there is the more information you can give to your consultant, the better off you are.